Hello everyone, Johnny Mine here, and today we are learning Japanese with Kirby's Adventure. Last time we've finished the game, and so for those who haven't seen that yet, you might wonder why we are still playing it. Well, technically we could continue to play it because we unlocked extra mode by finishing 100% the main game, but most likely we won't do that. First and foremost, we have to check the ending of the game. We saw it last time, but we didn't have the time to read it, translate it, explain the grammar as usual. And so we'll do that first and foremost. Then we'll check the writings you unlock by doing extra mode. So we'll still check them, even though we won't do that, by thanks to some sites that have them. And after that, we'll see how much time we have. Again, doubt we most likely won't play extra mode. We might, if we have some time, attempt just for fun a boss rush at most. But yes, we should finish the series today. And so without further ado, let's start reading, translating, and explaining the grammar of the ending. I recorded it last time. We can see again the moon blowing up and becoming crescent in that sense. Okay, we have first and foremost this. Yume no izumi o torimodosu tame, hitori tatakatte kita Hoshi no Kabi. First, we have Yume. We have seen it. We've even studied its kanji during this very series. It means dream. Dreams, of course, also plural, since you don't have to necessarily to distinguish the singular and the plural in Japanese. You can, if needed, specify the plural. There are various ways. The most typical one with the suffix tachi. But we have seen also the doubling of the word in certain cases, and so on. But yes, dream, or dreams, in our case it's dreams here. Yume, as a reminder, is accented on the last syllable. So when we add the particle no, like in this case, usually it would be accented on the last syllable, and so the particle would be low. But no is an exception, because when the noun attached to it is accented on the last syllable, it behaves like an unaccented word, and so no stays high. Yume no. Then we have izumi. We've also seen the kanji of this, because of course this Yume no izumi, as we'll soon see, is the fountain of dreams. Titular in Japanese, because it's the story of the mountain of the fountain, of dreams, and then of course Kirby, Hoshino Kabi, Kirby of the Stars, the Japanese name of Kirby games. But yes, Izumi, as a reminder, unaccented is technically a compound word because Izu is an older form of the verb to exit, to come out. In modern Japanese, it's deru. And you can see that the zu would actually be zu written with the tsu with the duck 10. But of course then it got changed in modern Japanese. And mi is an abbreviate, shorter form for mizu, water in general. More often than not called water because there's the word yu for hot water. But yes, so fountain spring, literally water that exits, and so fountain spring of dreams. Again, also a stage in Smash Bros. Then we had the object particle o. And then we have our verb, torimodosu, a compound verb from toru, should be accented but we'll check, which means to take. Let's see. Yes, accented. To take, and then of course all the to pick up, to grab, to catch, to hold, other extended meanings, but the fundamental one is to take. Modosu is the also accented, is the transitive form of modoru. Modoru we have seen in this very game above the doors that led to the previous level, so world in modoru, to go back. Modosu, to go back, to return, but of course to return in as in an intransitive verb. This one is to put back, to return, as in the transitive, to return something. And so, well, of course, as usual, toru is a u verb colon verb, so we can change the u into i to make the continuative form, and so attach the following verb to make the compound. And so torimodosu, luckily accented, just like the second verb, so regular. We have seen that there are some exceptions. Means to take back. Take back the fountain of dreams. And then we have technically a noun, and so everything up to the verb, including the verb, is technically a relative clause, modifying the following noun. Tame should be accented, yes, accented on the last syllable. Technically, I say because on its own it means advantage, benefit, sake, purpose, objective, aim. And so it's actually used to make as a final conjunction, as in to do in order to take back, in our case, to take back the Fountain of Dreams, to take that back the Fountain of Dreams. And then we have the rest, starting with Hitori. Hitori, we have already seen it, but it's technically noun plus counter. The counter in this case is ri, is an exception because it's a strictly Japanese reading of the kanji for person. Unfortunately, I remember, I think I mentioned in a previous episode that we studied it, but I don't think we have. We simply saw how to write it when we saw the title for The Legend of Zelda, but we haven't studied it yet. But usually the counter for number of people is of Chinese origin, is one of the Chinese readings, nin. But for one person and two persons, two people, we use ri instead. And being of strictly Japanese origin, it means that we have to use the Japanese numerals, strictly Japanese numerals. And so in our case, for one, hito, which is also actually the hito is the reading for the term, the most common word for person in Japanese. But of course, and most certainly it has the same, I'd say it has the same origin. Would be weird if it didn't. But yeah, in this case, it's the reading for the number 1 plus person, and so one person. Hitori. We have seen hito as the number 1 also in hitotsu. 1 plus the general purpose counter, quite useful. In this case, here it's not mentioned, but as we'll see, it usually requires in this usage a particle, and that particle is de as one person. We use the particle de. Could technically be potentially also de as in the te form of the copula, but and most likely seeing the meaning could be that being alone, as in being by oneself, being by one person, literally. Here, honestly, it works also without it, but you can find it with the, and so actually, most likely the copula instead of the particle. And then we have our other verb, tatakatte kita, technically a verb in its te form plus kita. We'll see it in a second. First and foremost, we have tatakatte, which comes from tatakau. I'm pretty sure it's unaccented, but we'll check. It means to fight. to fight, as in to make a war on, to wage war against, but of course also as to fight, as in to contend. Technically, we have already seen the word also because it's technically the strictly Japanese reading of a kanji we have studied, the one we have seen in the word for the arena in this game. To, it's Chinese reading. But yes, in general, to fight, and it covers all the meanings. As we'll see, there's another kanji that's used more often than not instead of the one we've already studied. Yes, unaccented, as I remember correctly. Then we change it into its the form. Being a verb, verb, godan verb, we have to follow the rules. In our case, it's literally a verb ending in u. And so it becomes a double consonant te. As a reminder, that's because the verbs in u actually were in hu, and so pu originally. And so, of course, tatakapite, then the i most likely fell, tatakapte, the p on its own was difficult to pronounce, and so became a double consonant, the doubling of the following consonant. And so we have tatakatte. Since the verb is unaccented, it's also unaccented, the form. And then we had kita. Kita from kuru, which means to come, both in a spatial or temporal meaning. We then change it into its ta form, being one of the completely irregular verbs, just like suru, to do. We simply have to follow, remember how to make it. So kuru becomes kita in its ta form, so kite in its ta form, but here we have the ta form, which is the past form of the verb in plain speech. And so also most conjugations. We add it to the te form of a verb either to literally mean come and do the action of the verb in the te form, but also could be, and in this case it could be honestly both, it could be because to come, as in up to this point, and so in a temporal sense, fight up to now. As we'll see, you can also do the form te iku with the verb to go. And so also that with the opposite meaning, to go and fight, in our case would be, or to fight from now on. Honestly, in this case, let's say the temporal meaning has the most sense, even though both could work. But yes, we put it into its ta form. Fought on his own up to now. But then we have a verb in its ta form. So in the past, but then a following noun. So technically, it's yet again a relative clause. And in this case, I'd say actually is technically relative clause. Following noun, which is Hoshi no Kabi. First we have Hoshi. We have studied the kanji because, again, it's in the title. In this case, the title of all Kirby games in Japanese. Hoshi, unaccented, means, star. Then no, the possessive particle of, and then Kabi, Kirby's name in Japanese, of course. In Japanese there isn't the sound and so it becomes long a, the closest vowel. And so Kirby of the Stars, who fought up to now on his own, alone, literally as one person, to take back the Fountain of Dreams. As we'll see, these sentences, because technically the sentence ends here, with a noun at the end and everything relative clause before it that specifies it, is a structure that can be found in Japanese. Especially I've seen it in narrations like this one. It practically introduces this character, in our case, or better, in our specific case, what Kirby has done up to now. Also, tatakatte kita. And so yes, we have seen this first part. Let's continue. Then we have, and you can see also that it's, if you weren't convinced that the sentence ended there, even though, of course, why would they separate it? Well, it could be because of limitations of space, but it wouldn't make sense. It would be avoided if possible anyway. And there is more space technically here, unless you wanted to divide it like this for stylistic purposes. But we have further proof that it's separated, because then in the following sentence we start with, well, first I read it. Shikashi, dede de daio wa warugi ga atte. And in this case, actually, the sentence will continue as we have the form at the end. While at the start, we have shikashi. As a reminder, we have the first I, that it's inevitably, practically, barely heard, if at all, because it's between unvoiced consonants, and so I and U in such a spot, in such a are barely heard, if at all. And then technically, potentially, also the other I of the second C, because it's at the end. And so the rule applies also in that case, as we have seen also for the polite form of the verb mas. By the fundamental one is that it's barely heard, if at all, the first one. Shikashi. Shikashi. But you could also hear shikashi. But yes, as I was saying, this is further proof that it's another sentence because this is a conjunction, which means however, but, accented by the way on the ka, couldn't be on the first C. Usually, some still keep the accent even if when the vowel isn't heard, if at all, but most don't. It's accented on the ka, si. So ka is high, everything else is low. It means however, but, and it's found at the start of a sentence in reference to what has been said before it. However, in reference to what has been said before. And then we have de, daio. De is the name of DDD in Japanese. And then we have again daio, which means literally great king is his title. Great king de title, and so and also of honorific or respectful language. Then we have the topic particle wa, written as ha. And so, however, as for king, the great king, de, then we have warugi, a noun, technically a compound. Between waru, you might know this word because of the whole wario, or even better in this case, since it's not contracted, waruigi, which are the evil counterparts of Mario and Luigi, respectively, because waru which on its own should be accented on wa, okay, I remember correctly. But it comes from an adjective, which is warui, accented, okay, which means fundamentally bad, as in poor, undesirable, by extension poor quality, inferior, but bad also in the sense of evil and other extended meanings. And then we have gi, which actually comes, it would be on its own ki, unaccented. We have seen it before. It's the word which means spirit, mind, heart, other extended meanings, nature, disposition, intention, mind, will, mood, feelings, and so on. Care, attention, we have seen it, for example, with the Kyotsukeru expression, literally apply ki in the sense of care, attention, so be careful. Here we find it as gi with the dakuten and the voiced consonant, because it's a compound, and the second word is of strictly Japanese origin, and we've seen that more often than not, in such cases, it becomes, we add the duck 10, the consonant becomes voiced. So literally, it means bad spirit, in this case as will, intention, intention, and so the meaning is ill will, evil intent. Then we have the subject particle ga, and then we have our verb in its the form atte. From aru, which means to be, as in the sense to exist. Of, as a reminder, of inanimate objects. When we want to use it with animate ones, and so people or animals, we use the verb iru, unaccented, unlike aru, which is accented instead. And so literally would mean, as for, well, first we have to change it into its step form for the continuation. As we'll see, it's a verb, godan verb, so we have to follow the rules. It's in ru, and so it becomes double consonant te. Again, ri, te, then the e most likely fell off, and so arte, of course, difficult to pronounce for Japanese, and so it became a double consonant instead. We have seen it also kind of in certain compound verbs, where the first verb is in ru and the second one is in the first one ends in ru and the second one starts in tsu. Yatsukeru, for example. And yes, we have our te form. But as I was mentioning, literally, this sentence would mean, however, as for king, the great king, there an evil intent, ill will, there was. Unfortunately, in this case, we can't tell if the verb is in the present or the past, because we have the te form. And so depends actually on the rest of the sentence, which we see soon. Most likely, in this case, also by the context is in the past. But as we have seen before, I think this, not sure if during this series or the previous one, The Legend of Zelda, the structure person wa, something ga, aru, or iru, of course, depending on what that something is a way to make the verb to have. Again, literally, as for king, an ill will, an evil intent, there was an evil intent. And so it becomes then, as for King Dedede, he had an evil intent. And so we have translated so far. We can continue. Even more so in this case necessary because, oops. Let's see if... okay, no. We actually need to see it here because then the following part there wasn't. There was another sentence. Here we have the continuation of the previous one. We had the te form, and so it had the meaning that the te form was required to make either the verb of the previous part and whatever will be said in this following one. But we have also seen that the form can have the meanings by doing. Also, we've seen a case in which it was kind of while doing, even though we have seen that while usually requires a different structure. We see, depending on the rest, what the meaning of that the form was. Let's read it, this one. Yume no izumi ni itazura o shita wake de wa arimasen deshita. First we have again Yume no izumi, the fountain of dreams. Ni, a particle which in this case means towards. We'll see in which sense depending on the following verb. Verb which, well, first we have the noun itazura. I wouldn't be surprised if the word itself were actually a compound, but it's not completely clear in its modern form. I'll try to check it because ita could be from itai, which means I also check the accent, which means painful, sore. Let's see its accent. Yes, accented, itai. And then we have this tsura, which I'm not completely sure in this case from where it comes. I can see also here that it's actually tsura with the dakuten. And so it becomes zura, and so yes, again, definitely a compound. But I'm not sure about the meaning of this tsura. As for how it's written, even though here it's simply in hiragana, usually it's a reading applied to a Chinese compound, and nowadays simply read globally with that reading. Yeah, because tsura would mean the one usually used nowadays would mean face, mug, by extension, surface, and so on. I wonder if it could also be related to tsurai, which means painful, bitter, difficult, as in emotionally, and so also difficult, as in tough, hard, usually of situations. Also found as zurai, with the from tsurai with the dakuten. By extension, also cruel, harsh, cold. So yeah, I wonder if it could be a combination of those, but let's ignore that for now. Globally, itasura, unaccented, means mischief, prank, also can be used as a na adjective, of course, when by adding na, and so mischievous, naughty, and so it actually became the fundamental meaning. If it's actually from itai and tsurai, somewhat more light-hearted, from potentially painful and, well, again, technically painful, but is in difficult, tough, bitter. It now is mischief, prank. And so we have mischief, then prank, then we have the object particle o, written as wo, and also pronounced as such in careful speech and also singing. Then we have the verb suru, here sta, so it's ta form. Again, as already mentioned, suru means to do. So here literally do mischief, do a prank. And we even have in this case the object particle in between. As we have seen, more often than not, we can also do simply add the suru directly after the noun to make the corresponding verb. In both cases, literally to do whatever the noun is, in our case, mischief, prank, and so usually to the corresponding verb to that noun. But here it's literally do a prank with the object. We change it into its ta form. Suru again is completely irregular, so we simply have to remember it. It becomes sta. So did a prank. Towards the Fountain of Dreams. And then we have, after that, a noun. So, yet again, it's technically a relative clause, everything we have seen up to this point. As you can see, relative clauses, this structure is quite off-putting. The verb in its plain form and everything else to make actually a clause before it, and put all of that right before its corresponding noun is quite an important structure in Japanese, because of course it's how you do actual relative clauses, but also structures like tame, we have just seen, to, as in the purpose, in order to do. And then we have this one, wake. We check its accent. It means reason, cause, grounds. So meaning, also by extension, meaning, sense, other extended meanings. It's accented on the first syllable, so wake. But before translating, we actually have to see the rest, because wake is used in certain expressions, like this one. We technically then put the copula in its te form, te. Then we have the particle, the topic particle wa. But as we have seen before, the te form of a verb plus wa means if even if in this case, however, it's technically simply we had wa, because another usage of the topic particle is that it's usually used with negative verbs, because technically we say as for that something, it isn't that way. So we put the focus more than on the something, on it not being on the verb, and so it not being not doing a certain something. And it's actually, in this case, how we make the negative form of the copula, as we soon see, actually the past negative form, but it works also for the present negative form of the copula. We have to put the copula in its te form, so de. Then we add wa, most likely simply required by that usage with negative verbs. Then we have the negative form, the polite negative form of the verb aru, because actually the copula in Japanese, we have seen it as da in plain speech, des in polite speech, but both come from de aru. De aru. And so, of course, it then got contracted. The aru on its own, and so the a, and then the ru dropped, da. For des, de arimas. We kept the de, and then the su of mas, and dropped everything else in between. And so that's why we have, to make the negative form, we still keep, by adding this wa in the middle, but it's technically the aru, the extended form of the copula. In the negative, and so in polite speech, it's we take the plain form of the verb, the aru. We change the u into i. It's a u verb, godan verb, so we can change the u into i to make the continuative form. Here required to attach the auxiliary verb, technically, mas, in the affirmative polite, which signals that it's the affirmative polite form of the verb. The negative one is masen, technically because se is the even though, as we'll see, it's not typical in modern Japanese, but it's something of classical Japanese. It's the basis for the negative in this case, and then we had n, so nu, and all the form of the negative. We see that come back actually in modern Japanese in certain structures. But you can simply remember mas positive, masen negative. Also the accent is on the se, unlike mas on the ma. And then to make the negative form in the polite speech, we simply add to the negative form of the verb in the polite speech arimasen, we add the past form of the polite copula, des, polite affirmative in the past, it becomes de sta. And so then we have our form, the past negative form in polite speech, actually of the copula in this case, because we have this de aru with the wa in the middle, the additional but actually required nowadays, de warimasen de sta. I can already mention that you'll also see this de wa contracted into ja. More often than not, you find jarimasen de sta, with this contraction, even if it is in the polite speech, and even more so in plain speech, but where it would be janai in the in the present form, but we'll see that when the time comes. And so, literally, the reason is not that Kindi did had literally as for King the great King there was an evil intention. King had evil intentions and did a prank to the Fountain of Dreams. In translation, even easier, we could say the fact isn't even simply, it isn't that King and so on and so. So yes, we have this structure, wake plus the negative form of the copula means literally the reason isn't that and everything that comes before it. It isn't that the fact isn't that it isn't that. It's a way to say an explanation to explain that something isn't that way actually, but it is of course in another way, which it will explain after this, so we can continue. And we have this new sentence. I'd say we'll actually take our break here, so we can continue with this. Honestly, as much as I try to, we might use the whole episode to read this ending, and then we have the luckily really short writings unlocked after extra modes, so those should be quick, but hopefully we'll be able to do everything during this very episode. But okay, without further ado, I take a short break around 5 minutes as usual, and so when we are back we'll continue with that. With this, I'll actually keep it like this for now. Okay, see you in around 5 minutes. And we are back. And so we can continue reading this ending. Hopefully finish it and also have time for those few extra readings. So without further ado, let's continue. それは夢の泉に悪夢が現れたことから始まりました。First we have それ。We have seen it before, is one of the words of the Koso Ado series. The distances close to the speaker and the listener, so far from the speaker, close to the listener, far from both, and dot interrogative. Then we had re to make the pronoun. So that, far from the speaker, close to the listener, that as the pronoun. And so we can then add its particle, like in this case, the topic particle wa. And so as for that, that in reference to the reason, we've seen the wake. As a reminder, the koso a words are unaccented, the do one is accented on the first syllable. As for that, Yume no Izumi, again, the Fountain of Dreams, ni. In this case, ni means at the locative particle. As we have seen, usually for most verbs, the particle de is used to say doing something at a certain location. Ni is used only with verbs of staying. Usually aru, iru, literally to be, as in to exist, for example, sumu. But in this case, it's used with another verb, but it makes sense considering the meaning of the verb, as we'll see soon enough. First, we have a word, a noun, in between quotes, in this case to put emphasis on it. Akumu. I think accented on the first syllable, but we'll check. Akumu is a Chinese compound between aku, which is the Chinese reading for the kanji of warui, bad, as we've seen before, evil. And then we have mu, which we have seen before because we have already studied its kanji. It's the Chinese reading for the kanji of dream. Yume is the strictly Japanese reading. Mu, the Chinese one. And so to make this Chinese compound, of course, we use both Chinese readings. Usually that's the rule. There are some exceptions where we combine Chinese readings with strictly Japanese ones and the other way around. But let's ignore that for now. Usually the rule is this way. It's like this. I check the accent, but literally means bad dream. And so nightmare. But in Japanese, from Chinese, it's quite easy, literally bad dream. Let's check its accent. Yes, accented on the first syllable, I remember correctly. Then we add the subject particle ga. And then we have the verb araware ta. Arawaru means to appear. To appear as in to come in sight, to become visible, but also in the sense to materialize. Also, by extension, to appear, it becomes to be expressed of emotions, for example, or to become apparent of an effect, for example. But yes, in our case, it's the fundamental meaning to appear. In its ta form here, it's a ru verb, it's done verb, so we can simply drop the ru and add ta. And so, a bad dream appeared at, we could say in, also, the fountain of dreams. But then we have the ta form. After that, we have a word, a noun. So technically, yet again, it's technically a relative clause. Word which is koto. We've mentioned it multiple times because we have seen it also in the structure. Verb koto ga dekiru, to be able to do that verb. Literally, the fact of doing that verb is possible. And yes, koto again means thing, as in matter. As a reminder, there's also mono, thing as in object. We studied the kanji of that, unlike this one. Thing as in matter, and so also fact. We'll see then with the translation, but let's continue for now. Then we had the particle kara, from. And then last but not least, we have our main verb, hajimarimashita. From hajimaru, I think unaccented, but we'll check. It means to begin, to start, the intransitive form of the verb. Because then we have also hajimeru. We'll check first the accent. Okay, yes. Hajimaru unaccented, so also hajimeru should be unaccented, which is the transitive form of the verb to begin something, to start something. Here we have the intransitive form, and by the way, notice again the intransitive is in aru, while the transitive is in eru. The intransitive one is in aru because most likely is actually a classical form of a passive form of the verb. Something is begun, and so it begins as in intransitive form of the verb. But yes, we have hajimaru. We can then change the u into i to make the continuative form of the verb. In this case, to simply attach mashita, the auxiliary verb used for the polite form of the verb. Here in the past, it's a past form. And so we can now translate. As for that, it began, it started with, from, literally, the fact that a bad dream, a nightmare, appeared at the Fountain of Dreams. So we can continue. Then we have another sentence. As you might have already seen at the bottom, it actually continues in the following box, because again we have the form at the end, and that usually isn't, you can't have the form of a verb at the end. We'll see that sometimes you can, but it's actually an abbreviation of a certain something. Well, I can already mention it. It's the abbreviation of te kudasai, the polite imperative, literally. Please do the favor of doing the action in that verb. But I doubt in this case. Of course, we'll see by continuing. So let's read it. Naitomea to nanoru akumu wa yume no izumi no nagare ni notte. First and foremost, we have naitomea, nightmare from English. Here used as the noun of this bad dream, as we'll see with the rest of the sentence. We check the accent. Okay, we can find it on the web dictionary. I'll quickly check the physical dictionary, even though I doubt it, but we'll take. Okay, got the physical dictionary. Let's check, even though I have doubts again. Sometimes we can find the answer, but the times not even here. It's Naito. Yeah, no. I'd say either in like night, as and so on, the na, just like in English, or on the mea, since technically also in English it's a compound. But unfortunately we can't make sure. So anyway, naitomea, between quotes. And in this case, we actually have also the particle to, which is the particle used to introduce, that comes after a quotation. Here required because of the following verb, nanoru, technically a compound verb, but in this case, actually from a noun, because na on its own unaccented means name, given name, by extension title, and other extended meanings like fame, reputation, and so on. But here is name, literally in its fundamental meaning. Then we have noru, actually unaccented, okay. which means usually to get on for trains, planes, buses, ships, and so on, to board. To get on also, for example, a footstool. But the fundamental meaning is to get on. Technically, even though it doesn't show it here, it would also be to ride, because I think it can be used. I'll quickly check. For, let's quickly see, even though, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it can also be used with horses, yes. And so, to get on a horse, to mount a horse, to ride a horse. So yes, the fundamental meaning is to get on. But of course, in this case, to ride, to get on, in a figurative sense, by adding with this na, the name, which means to give one's name as, to introduce oneself as, to claim to be, to call oneself, and so on, to reveal oneself as, literally to ride the name, and so to call oneself. In our case, called, or better, claiming to be, introducing himself as, even better in that case, since if then we can keep the as similar to the to in Japanese. Introducing himself implied as nightmare. And then we have a noun after that, again, yet another relative clause. Noun which is akumu, again, bad dream. And then the topic particle. And so, as for the bad dream, introducing himself as nightmare, then we have, again,夢の泉, so the fountain of dreams, then the possessive particle no. Then we have nagare. We have seen it before thanks to one of the titles ranks in this very game. The titles ranks depending on your completion percentage. Nagare comes from nagareru, think accented yes, which is the intransitive verb, to stream, to flow of liquid fundamentally, but also by extension time. And so yes, the fundamental meaning is to stream, to flow. So nagare, we can then drop the ru. It's a ru verb, it's done verb, so we can drop the ru to make the continuative form, and so the relative, the corresponding noun. And so flow, stream, current. Let's check its accent, because it could be, okay, no, it's actually regular, it's accented on the last syllable, nagare. Then we have the particle ni, which means in this case on, because it's actually required by default by the verb, the following verb, which is notte. Notte comes from noru, which we have seen above. By the way, I forgot to mention noru on its own unaccented, as we can see here. Nanoru, seen above, becomes accented, so be careful, most likely because it's actually a compound verb, and so in that case the accent is on the first syllable, technically, of the second part of the compound. But yes, we have already seen noru, to get on, to ride. I'd also say, in this case, it could be, we then change the it into the te form. It's a verb, it's done verb, and so we have to follow the rules. Being in ru, it becomes double consonant te. Could be ride the current, the flow, and, but in considering the context, I'd say most likely by riding, by getting on the flow of the fountain of dreams. And of course then we have the first part, which I didn't mention again, so the full translation so far becomes, as for the bad dream, introducing himself as, calling himself as, himself implied, as nightmare, by riding, by the flow, the current, the stream of the fountain of dreams. Then we can see the rest. We have to change video. Funny enough, now the shows up. And we have this, the continuation of that sentence. Pupupurando no subete no ikimono o kurushimeyo to shita no desu. First and foremost, we have Pupupurando, the name of the setting. Pupupu land, rando, land from English, because of course Japanese doesn't have the sound L, and so it becomes the closest one, which is R. Then we have the possessive particle no, of Pupupur and. Then we have subete. We've seen it before. Technically, the form of a verb, but it actually becomes, in this case, there are some, it can happen with some exceptions, but usually that isn't the case. Technically becomes a noun, which means all, everything, the whole. Also used as an adverb, and so with the meaning all, as in entirely, completely, wholly. But in this case we had the possessive particle no to technically it's again a combination of noun plus the possessive particle no, but it kind of becomes like an adjective. All of the following noun, which in our case is ikimono. A compound of strictly Japanese origin between accented, by the way, on the mo, ikimono, because again, this is one of the typical positions for the accent for such compounds on the first syllable of the second part of the compound. First, we have iki from ikiru, which means to live. We have even studied its kanji, accented. Then we have mono. Sorry. First, we drop the ru, and so make we can drop the, it's a ru verb, it's done verb, so we can drop the ru to make the continuative form, in this case required by to make the compound, even though it's a compound with a following noun instead of a verb. Following noun, which is mono, already mentioned, we even studied its kanji, thing as in object. So literally, living things. All living things of Pupupu land. Then we have the object particle o. Then we have a verb, kurushime yo, from kurushimeru, hope, okay, seems to be working, which is we check the accent, means to torment, to pain, to inflict pain, physical, but to hurt, and so also extended meanings, to harass, to cause emotional pain, but the fundamental meaning is to pain, to hurt. It's a ru verb, it's a done verb, so we can drop the ru to then add yo u, so long yo, and so the volitional form of the verb. In this case, in its other meaning, the most common one we have seen is let's. This one is more in the sense of will, of showing the will, the intention, the volition, and that's why it's called also volitional form, of the subject. I will do an action, something, because it's my intention to do so. In this case, in particular, it's actually required by the following the following verb with this particle to, because it becomes a special expression. Volitional form of a verb plus to, so kind of again like the quotation particle in this case, like we've seen, plus the verb suru, to do, actually becomes to try to, or to be about to do the action of the main verb. In this case, let's say try to hurt all the living, to torment all the living things of Pupupu land. Of course, then we change the verb into its ta form, being Suru is completely irregular again, so we simply have to remember that its ta form is in sta, becomes shita. In the past, because of the ta form. Then we have no des. No is a nominalizer for verbs, but also can be seen with the same meaning and also the same function, even though there are some differences between the two, but they're quite close, with koto, again, thing as in matter, and so fact. But when we put a verb before no and then add the copula, we have this expression, no des. We've also seen it as no da, and also the abbreviation of no in n. It becomes the expectation is that, the reason is that, the fact is that, the explanation is that, it, or even simpler, it is that. Here, the best one would be the reason is that, the explanation is that. So we are explaining all the it's the explanation of why the great king did what he did. And so the reason is that, the fact is that what we have seen in the previous sentence, the one as for the one as for the bad dream, introducing himself as a nightmare by riding the flow, the current, the stream of the fountain of dreams, tried to torment, to hurt, to pain all the living things of Pupupurand. And so we have finally the ending of that previous sentence. So we can continue. And then we finally have, and so, as for the great king, but first we read this sentence. Dayo wa Yume no Izumi no Chikara no Minamoto de aru. And like this, it could seem simply that it ends there, but as we'll see, it's actually that the aru is in plain speech simply because there is then a following noun, and so this is yet again a relative clause. But first we have, as I've already translated, dayo, the great king with the topic particle wa, and so as for the great king something, as I've already said, that there will be something. That's something. The aru, the extended form of the copula in the plain speech, it's usually found in books. It's more of a literal form of the copula, it's the extended form. But the meaning is the same, so is, which is, we have to go backwards in this case, since we are doing it in this order. Minamoto, we have seen it before, should be unaccented if I recall correctly. It's technically the word, even though it now has its own kanji, it's technically a compound. Mi, again from the shortened form for mizu, water. Na, another form of the possessive particle no, so of water. And then moto. Of that, we have, I think we have studied the kanji, or at least I introduced it. No, yes, we should have studied the kanji. Moto means origin. And so, literally, the origin of water, the source of a river, the fountainhead, and so also, by extension, source, origin, root in general. Which is the source of, as we can see by the previous possessive particle no, attached to chikara. Chikara, which means strength. The fundamental meaning we've also seen strength, force, might, vigor, energy, but also capability, ability. We have seen it for the copy abilities, but in this case, I'd say simply strength. The source, which is the source of the strength of, again, the previous no, attached to Yume no Izumi, of the Fountain of Dreams, which is the source of the power of the Fountain of Dreams. You might have guessed it. We'll see it in the continuation of this, which is actually in the next file. Kirby waved goodbye to King Dedede. And yes, of course, it's the Star Rod. And so we can continue by reading Star Rod o kakusu koto ni yotte naitomea o fujikometa no desu. First we have, of course, Star Rod, the Star Rod, which is the source of the power of the Fountain of Dreams. Then with the object particle o. Then we have a verb, kakusu. We check the accent, but it means to hide, to conceal. Let's see its accent. Okay, accent, kakusu. Then we have, of course, again, koto. The fact, the matter of hiding the Star Rod. Then we have ni yotte, now used this way, but technically it's a combination of the particle ni, to, or depending on the translation of the other part, of. Better to remember it, but of course then we would have to adapt it in English. And then we have yotte, which actually is the form of a verb, technically, as you might have guessed. Verb which is yoru. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. Yes, it's this one, but here written with different kanji, because of course we want to check its accent. But the meaning is to be due to be caused by. Also another meaning, and there can also be different kanji depending on the meanings. To depend on, to turn on, to be based on, to come from. Also by extension, to be based at a location, an organization. Yoru, which is unaccented. So technically, I'd say, even though it doesn't show the accent here, niyotte should be unaccented also. But nowadays, niyotte is used as an expression, ready for the use. Technically, yoru, it's a u verb, kodan verb, so we can change the u. We have to follow the rules to make the te form, so it's in ru, and so double consonant te. Now we use niyotte as an expression, ready as is, to say according to, due to, by, as in the means of, because of, on the basis of, depending on. And in our case, it's actually by means of, by hiding, literally the fact of hiding. The star rod, nightmare, again nightmare, o the object particle, and then we have our verb, our main verb, fuji come ta. It's a compound verb from fujiru. We check its accent. Okay, an accented. Fujiru means to seal. Usually of a letter, for example, but of course, by extension, especially in these games, it becomes to seal, for example, the source of evil, an evil being, like in our case, nightmare, and other extended meanings, but the fundamental meaning is to seal. Then we have komeru. We have seen before komeru, or at least I think komu. Komu is the intransitive form of the verb. Komeru is the transitive one. Notice another classic couple of intransitive, transitive verbs in u and then in eru. But yes, the fundamental meaning would be to put into, also by extension, to load a gun, to charge, to include. We have seen it also before with the to put into for komu, especially when attached to another verb as the second part of a compound. And so literally seal and put into. And so the meaning of Fuji Komeru, luckily accented, just like Komeru, to shut in, to confine in, to seal in, to trap, and then also by extension to contain, as in to suppress, to restrain, and so on. Then, of course, we have again node S, so the fact is, the explanation is it is that by hiding the star rod, which is the source of the power of the Fountain of Dreams, as a reminder, the subject was and the topic was as for the great king Dedede. By hiding the star rod and so on, sealed in nightmare. So we can continue. Okay, let's quickly check. We have this, then this. Okay, I think it's these three. We'll try to do them all and then quickly see the extra writings, but even though we don't have much time, we'll try to do it. Yes, okay, we're here. Dedede dayo no chikara o karite, Kabi wa akumu o yatsukemashita. First, we start again with Dedede dayo, then the possessive particle no of the great king Dedede, then the now modified by it, chikara, again, the strength of the great king Dayo, the great king Dedede, then the object particle o, and then a verb, karite, from kariru. We check the accent, but it means to borrow. Kariru, unaccented, okay, kariru. Then we can make the form. It's a ru verb, it's an verb, so we can drop the ru to make and simply add te to make the form. In this case, by borrowing the strength of the great king Dedede. Kabi, wa, and so as for Kirby, wa, the topic particle. Akumu, bad dream, literally, nightmare. O, the object particle, and then the main verb, yatsukemashita. Already kind of mentioned it, yatsukeru, the compound verb from yaru, usually to do a colloquial word for it, same meaning as suru, but also with the extended meaning to harm, to injure, and then tsukeru to attach, to apply, and so, to add, and so literally to apply damage, to apply harm, injure, and so yatsukeru means to beat, to attack an enemy, to finish off. And so the translation is, as for Kirby, by borrowing the strength of the great king Dedede, he, implied, defeated the bad dream, the nightmare. Then we have this, Star Odo Izumi ni modoseba, Minna no yume ga kaette kuru koto desho. First, we have again Star Rod, then the object particle o, then Izumi, the fountain, the spring, implied of dreams, ni, and so tu. Then we have modoseba from modosu. We've already seen it. Means to return, as in the transitive form of the verb. But in this case, we have to change it into it's a u verb codan verb, so we can change the u into e, and then add ba to make a conditional form if when. In this case, better when, since Kirby is going to do it. Technically, it could work also as if, but yes, when Kirby implied returns the star rod to the fountain, implied of dreams. Then we have minna from mina. This form with the additional n in the middle is an emphatic form, less formal also, but both are accented on the last syllable, mina, minna. It means everyone, everybody, all. Then we add the possessive particle no, and so of everyone, of everybody. Then again, yume, dreams, the dreams of everybody. Then the subject particle ga. And then we have the verb kaete kuru. First we have kaeru, which means to return, but usually as in to return as in the meaning to come home, to go home. Here more as in to go back. Then we change it into the form. It's a u verb, codan verb, so we have to follow the rules. It's in ru. Pay attention that it's actually, despite being in eru, it's a u verb, codan verb. It's one of those exceptions. So we have to follow the rules. It's in ru, and we change it into double consonant te. The form which is required to add then the verb kuru, to come. And so to show the direction of the action, and so to come back, implied to everyone, to everybody. Then we have again koto, nominalizer for the verb, the fact of coming back. And last but not least, we have the show. The show, which is technically the volitional form of the copula. You might have noticed because of the u and so long o. It's actually used to make a dubitative form of verbs. It seems, I think, I guess, I wonder, but also actually not that dubitative, and simply to ask confirmation from the other person. Right? Don't you agree? Here, honestly, it seems more like the second one. And so the translation becomes, if when you, Kirby, or simply in general you, return the star rod to the fountain, implied of dreams, the dreams of everyone should, in translation, it's better to add a should, come back. In this case, let's say, right. Don't you agree? But it could also be simply in the sense it seems, I think. And then we have this. I think it's actually the last, finally the last sentence. Kyo kara wa makura o takaku shite nemuri ni tsuku koto ga dekisou desu. First we have kyo, which means today. Nowadays, as a global meaning, a global reading of the kanji, but it's actually a compound of ke plus hu from he, unaccented, which means they. Ke, this, as we see in other words like kesa, this morning, still used that way. Then it became kyo because ke eu, the combination eu becomes you, because actually e often had a y before it, so you, and then it got changed into yo, and then of course long yo. So kyo, today. Then we had kara, from. Then we had the topic particle wa, so as from today. Then we have makura, which means pillow. We check the accent. Okay, accented on the first syllable, makura. Then we have the object particle o. And then we technically have an adjective, takaku, from takai. We've seen it before, means high, tall. By extension, also expensive because of high priced. Of course, then also extend the high level of something. The fundamental meaning high. We change, we can drop the i and add ku to change it into this form, used for adverbs, for further conjugation. In this case, in combination with suru, the verb literally to do, to make high. Here in its te form, its suru is completely irregular, so it becomes te. So literally make the cushion, the pillow, high, which is an expression in Japanese, usually used with with one of the two verbs which mean to sleep. Makura o takaku shite nemuru, unaccented by the way nemuru, to sleep. Neru, or neru, to sleep, as in lying down, to lie down literally, to go to bed, to lie in bed. And with nemuru, to sleep in peace, to sleep without fear. and also with Neru. And as we'll see, also with what we'll see here, which derives from it. So the T-form is actually required by the this expression by making the pillow high, or also make the pillow high and sleep. In our case, we have Nemuri from Nemuru. It's a U verb, Godan verb, so we can change the U into I to make the continuative form. Here, as to make the noun, so sleep as in noun, the noun. Then we have the particle ni, literally with the meaning to here. And then we have tsuku. We have even seen its kanji. In this case, it's the tsuku to arrive at, to reach. In this case, of course, figuratively so. To arrive at sleeping, and so to sleep, to start sleeping. Then we have again koto to make to nominalize it, and so then add the subject particle ka. And last but not least, the verb dekiru. Again, the expression I've already mentioned, koto ga dekiru, be able to do that action of the verb before koto. Here, last but not least, we have dekiru. We have to drop the ru. It's a ru verb, it's done verb, so we can drop the ru, and then add so u, so long so, which is used is an auxiliary, which means it appears that, it seems that, better, having the appearance of. And then, of course, being technically it's an adjective, and so we have to add the copula, in our case, des, the polite one. And so the translation becomes, as for today, literally, it seems that it will be the fact of arriving at sleep by putting the pillow high. And so, as we have seen, the expression means to sleep in peace. It seems that it will be possible. Sleeping in peace seems to be possible. And as we'll see, after that, it actually, this is the end, because then Kirby actually throws the star rod and it goes back to the Fountain of Dreams. And so we have seen then it actually happens that, and yeah, then the staff credit roll. And so with that, we have seen everything, but we'll quickly, luckily they're quite short, we'll see the extra readings. Extra readings, literally, as in the ones you can see when you have completed the extra mode. First and foremost, you start, have to open the browser, of course, Wiktionary. First and foremost, thanks to this site, we can see the screen, the title screen, the file select screen better when you have completed extra mode. 100% again, but then it says perfecto, perfect. We checked its accent, but it's perfect from English. And should be accented on the same syllable. Actually, it's in on the fe, as if it were perfect. Of course, there isn't a distinction with the moving accent between verbs and nouns, verbs and adjectives, and so on, as in English. Perfecto, so in Japanese, perfecto. Of course, abbreviation also of perfect game, as in baseball. And then we have the title, the corresponding title, which is, funny enough, simply Hoshi no Kabi, Kirby of the Stars. Kirby's typical title. The title of Kirby games in Japanese, as we can see also above here with the kanji Hoshi no Kabi. And yes, that's the title. I don't remember. We'll quickly check. In yeah, it got changed in English and it becomes Superstar. 100% plus extra game cleared Superstar. Then, other than that, you unlock the jukebox. And so, in Kirby's Adventure specifically, thanks to WeKirby here, we can see that the option is called Gemu no Ongaku o Kiku. Literally, as we can see also with the translation by its side, listen to game music, the music of the game. Gemu, as usual, game. No, the possessive particle. Ongaku should be an accent, but with sec means music. Yes, and is actually, sorry, accented on the first syllable, so ongaku. Combining the kanji, it's a Chinese compound combining the kanji for sound and pleasure, or pleasant also, and so on. And then we have the object particle, sorry, o, and then the verb kiku, which means, we'll check it, because to see also it's accent, but I think it's unaccented, which means to hear, yes, unaccented, but also to listen to, for example, to listen to music. You technically could use different kanji for the two meanings. And also by extension, most likely because to hear from someone, and so to ask someone, to inquire, and other extended meanings, but these are the fundamental one is to hear, and so also to listen to, and by extension, to ask. And now we can quickly see that the options here, thanks to this Japanese wiki. Sorry. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, hopefully. By making the image bigger, we can see that I'll open it actually at full size. Okay, perfect. That when you click that option, you get these ones, ongaku or kiku. Again, simply abbreviated here, listen to music. And then we have koukaon or kiku. We check the accent, but koukaon is literally sound on, as you can see, the same from ongaku. And koka which means effect. So sound effect. We check its accent. Okay, the accent, it's a Chinese compound. Technically on, in this case, kind of becomes a suffix. And so the accent falls on the ka, is on the ka, so ko-ka on. Ko-ka on its own, I think, is unaccented. No, actually, it's accented on the first syllable, sorry. And yeah, it means literally effect in various meanings. And so, yes, sound effect. Listen to the sound effects. And of course, at the bottom, Modoru, to go back, to return to the previous screen, to the previous options. And with that, it took some time, but we've actually seen the ending, the extra readings, the extra writings. You unlock, as you've seen, there were quite few, so it didn't make sense to play extra mode fully just for those when we could simply check them this way. And with that, it's the end of this series. So next time, if plans don't change, so on Wednesday, we'll start a new series. I actually have an idea, technically 2 ideas, but I have to choose. And so we'll see on Wednesday, or the next time we continue with the Let's Learn Japanese with the title of the video game series. It's the start of a new series, so see you then. Okay, see you next time.